Hi, hello. Welcome to another episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is May 14th, 2022. Hopefully, you had a good week. I know for me, it was pretty busy. I was dual wielding and did a little bit of the main job, and then I did a little bit of, food delivery, so that was fun, I guess. Though I will say, been a little bit slower lately, a little bit, as opposed to like last year, which makes sense. Inflation is crazy right now, right? Um, but yeah, overall, pretty good week. We made it through. No big calamities. Yay, yay. Knock on some wood. Yay, yay. Um, let's see. Food corner. I know you guys like that. I splurged on myself and I got a little burrito bowl from Chipotle. But the bad news was I got to the end. I got my burrito bowl. I got my salsa. And I kind of knew, like, I don't know, there's something about the vibe. I just knew I wasn't going to get exactly what I wanted. And I say, hey, I was like, chips, do you guys have any chips? And they're like, no, we don't have any chips. And I was like, oh. But a cowboy's going to make do. And I took my happy ass over to McDonald's and got a large fry. So that was pretty banger. Made that meal happen. So that was definitely like the meal of the week. Nothing else too tasty for real, for real. It's the usual concoctions, fabrications I make. I suppose we can get into the news. Yeah, sounds good. Keeping it pretty international this episode. But I am starting, with the, Russia-Ukraine stuff. Let's see. Not too much on the update in terms of like what's going on in Mariupol. It's more or less the same from what I've heard, gathered. Nothing big. In terms of like the Donbass region, though, there was a battalion of Russian soldiers that were trying to like cross like this river bridge or what have you, or it was down and they were trying to like, I guess, forge a way through across. But the battalion was wiped out before they could do that. So that was like interesting. I don't have an article source for it, but I did hear that on like the BBC podcast broadcast. So I was like, that was an interesting thing that came up on the ground. Also, Victory Day happened this week. I believe it was Monday. Pretty much what is Victory Day? It started after World War II. It was like a celebration of the veterans and, them, beating Nazis, fighting fascism, all that kind of stuff. So it's like really national, vibes in that regard. Real rah-rah stuff. But I guess since Putin came into power, he kind of started like changing the vibe a little bit to kind of like just do like almost like heat checks, kind of just like tell you guys where we're trying to go, what we need to focus on, like drive the nation, I guess you could say. And this was more or less like that. But I guess it was kind of a fear or a concern, from the West that Putin was going to use Victory Day to kind of say, hey, we're going to be pushing harder. We're going to be pushing farther. So not only would you potentially like doing things like adding conscriptions or things like that, sending more troops out onto the battlefield. Like these are things that were really a major concern. Also, is he going to go to like Moldova or worry about Finland? And also a little bit of a tangent from the Victory Day article that I'm about to get into. Finland and Switzerland have been pushing harder for NATO membership. It looks like Finland is set to apply. Now, I think they are looking for certain contingencies to make sure that they're going to be, protected, things like that. Just because, I mean, they do share a border with Russia. They have tried to, keep out of any alliance like that might trigger an issue. And Russia has said this would make an issue if you do this. So, that's kind of a big deal that came up. Once again, I don't have an article for that one, but just wanted to like kind of put that out there. We'll see how that goes in the future. It's gonna take months to kind of resolve that, and I mean, technically, it's kind of how we got into this mess with NATO and Ukraine. So I don't know that, and maybe this is me, just looking at it and having maybe the wrong opinion, but it just kind of feel hypocritical where like we still haven't, granted that to Ukraine, even though, we're shoveling money and weapons and all this stuff, to them. But I don't know. Anyway, we can get back to the Victory Day stuff. I got this article from The Insider. Hackers replaced Russian TV schedules during Putin's Victory Day parade with anti-war message saying the blood of Ukrainians is on Russians' hands. So that was a thing. There is a TikTok video in this article that kind of shows what happened. And essentially you can kind of see like on the little ticker, all of the messages for the times like of the day are like all set. Like the schedule is like itinerary or whatever you would call it is like that message. So that's like, I imagine would be pretty kind of spooky, eerie. I mean, that being said, though, I mean, the propaganda in Russia is pretty hard, pretty heavy. The state, like, media, like, so, I mean, seeing this is going to be something that you can kind of bat an eyelash off of, with, like, you're not really fazed by it if you're already buying the narrative sold to you in Russia right now, I think. So, I mean, that being said, I'm not saying that people don't disagree with it. I'm certain we've seen it. We've talked about it. There are definitely people protesting in Russia, and it's just the price of it is very high, so you have to be very subtle about it. And even then, they are very, very aggressive with cracking down on that kind of stuff. So, I mean, even something like this is very major. And they don't know the source of who did it. Maybe it was anonymous. Who knows? No one's taking credit, I believe. So, but anyway, that was interesting. Wanted to kind of cover all that. Also, there is an update on the Brittany Griner situation. Initially, I thought we'd have like an update next week because her trial, I think like date or whatever was scheduled for the 19th. But I guess it was extended 30 days. She had also requested, like housing arrest as opposed to just being arrested in an actual facility. That was denied. They said that her detention center was like adequate for her. So that's kind of unfortunate. You would like to kind of see a home situation. I don't know if they would actually like put her actually at home, but like maybe just in a home situation in Russia or something like that. I'm not sure, but either way, it was denied, which is unfortunate. I did find out in this article though that they are the WNBA is paying out her salary for the year, so that's really cool. So I want to keep you updated on that. We'll continue to as I get updates. Moving to some other news, really sad news. Got this from Yahoo News. Al Jazeera journalist killed by Israeli forces in West Bank. So this is a really sad story about a journalist by the name of Shireen Abu Aqleh. She was shot by Israeli troops. They were on a raid in the Jenin refugee camp in occupied West Bank. It was her and another journalist, I believe. They were like trying to move through an area, and essentially now, and this is kind of important too, that like they were moved from an area that was fighting, and they were moving to an open area that there wasn't any fighting. The Israeli soldiers said, yeah, you guys are good, you guys can pass. Mind you, also, this is important, they all press journalists, and this is like Ukraine, this is international, they have very distinctive vests, body armor that they wear, also helmets that they wear. It sticks out like a sore thumb. In this situation, they are blue press jackets with press, big bold white letters. So they're allowed to move through by these Israeli soldiers. They move into this open area. Next thing you know, they're being shot at. So The other journalist, I believe he might be a photographer. I'm not entirely sure, but I think he is another journalist. He gets shot. And so, he goes down, and Serene, tells him, like, hey, get down, are you injured? She's like, they're assessing the situation. And I believe as she's moving to cover, she gets shot in the head. And essentially, they do what they can. They try to get her to a hospital, but, there wasn't anything they can do from there. Now is, the Israel side of things, they're saying, hey, we're going to launch an investigation. But what we believe is that she was shot by potential Palestinian, like, gunfire. Like, they were just shooting wildly. It was a big firefight, yada, yada, yada. But once again, I'll take you back to the beginning of what I said. They were escorted and passed through to an open, clear area. There was no fighting there. And also, essentially, too, who was shooting at them was an Israeli sniper. So these are the types of people who are doing their firefighting away from main combat and with the scope. So it's very much like a surgical tactical situation. Like, you can see very clearly, you can target very clearly, and you're not supposed to take shots until you know exactly what you're firing at. So the idea that you would see someone with a vest like that, a press vest and helmet like that, two people alone in an isolated, open, controlled area, say, okay, I should fire on these people. I need to do that. It doesn't really add up. It just doesn't. And this is me obviously injecting my bias, is what I do. Yada, yada, yada. I'm allowed to. It's my fucking podcast. I think it's fucked up. It's very gross. And it's the saddest thing too is that it's not really covered. Like, I mean, yes, yeah, you see it in these little bumps. Like, it's not just Yahoo News. You could find this. I've read this article. I've heard this in several places. But it's just very sad that this is just one of the things in the multitude of things that's happening in Israel, in Palestine right now. It's sad, too, that you probably won't see justice for this. Another article I have from The Guardian, because she is a Palestinian American. So naturally, it forces us as Americans to care, say something, quote unquote, So there was a press release, and I mean, it really wasn't condemning what happened, but they were just saying, like, hey, because, and also too, another reason I have this article queued up is not only did that happen, so that's fucked up. That's the first atrocity here. Into the next, which is her funeral, which, happened. Essentially, she practices a Christian faith. So essentially, she was going through a Christian funeral, and they had pallbearers carrying her casket. They were going to walk it, a leg of the way. I guess apparently Israeli forces were saying, hey, no, you have to put it in a hearse, escort it. Also, they went to her domicile and removed all the flags and all her stuff. Apparently that's like illegal to have flags. Like, you can be like accused of sparking nationalism and stuff. It's fucking wild that you can't even have your flag where you live up. This is an occupation though, right? I guess, huh? But, so they had flags though at this procession. Apparently people like raided or rushed the barricade to be near the funeral, to be near the casket while it was being walked. And this just stirred a whole thing where you just see in the video the Israeli security forces just bashing people, just beating people up. And it's specific. These aren't people who are trying to like protect themselves or like maintain order. It's malicious. It's malicious violence on these people. At one point they beat a person so bad, and they beat the people who are carrying the casket so hard, they almost drop it, and someone has to like rush in and save it. Luckily they do. Just the whole shit is a mess. I don't know. The shit bums me out to fucking talk about. I should be like, quote unquote professional and find a good quote. Here we go. We are deeply troubled by the images of Israeli police intruding into the funeral procession of of Palestinian American Shireen Abu Aqleh. And that is Anthony Blinken's statement from his Twitter. Every family deserves to lay their loved ones to rest in a dignified and unimpeded manner. The thing is that there's not going to be any kind of sanctions. There's not going to be any kind of like real, penalty for this for Israel, because that's our little brother. You know what I mean? That's our little, our little piece in the Middle East. Like, we set them up, we established them, like, and they're going to be good as long as, what? It doesn't even matter. Like, they literally get a license to ill. I'm sorry. Like, I don't know. It's wild. It makes me upset. We can move on though. I have in the next one some kind of catch up stories. It's hard in this kind of situation where I give myself about 5 or 6 bumps, every episode. So that's about 10 to 12, right? So there's some stories where I'll hear and I'm like, this is crazy. This is big news. But like, I don't know how to really cover it. It's kind of above my pay grade. But I kind of tell myself, hey, if it hits a certain kind of inflection point, if things get crazy enough, big enough, something happens or it goes one way or the other, then I'll cover it. So these are the next 2 stories. I got this from CNN World. Let's see. Military rescues Sri Lanka's prime minister in pre-dawn operation as violent clashes leave 8 dead. So this is an ongoing situation that's been going on in Sri Lanka. As in a lot of places, the economy is really bad here. There's a lot of unrest. People are very unhappy. And apparently the Rajapaksa family, I guess they kind of came in Sri Lanka, one on a very kind of populist kind of vibe wave. People loved them in the beginning, but they've kind of failed to deliver. And now people are demanding that this family goes. And it kind of started really or at least a really big milestone was Mahinda Rajapaksa leaving office. He's prime minister of Sri Lanka, and everyone was like, okay, yeah, that's hype, that's great, but you need to take this further. And I believe, what is it, Gojabaya? I'm sorry, forgive me. Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who is the president, he's still in power, which means people are still upset. They're still mad. It has led to a lot of unrest in the streets. People were trying to peacefully protest, but there's been a curfew that's been put up. It's just a lot. It's a lot. And I know this is one of those things, it's a story that's so big, and I'm coming into it as just like a guy who has internet. Like, it's not like I'm smart here. So I do the best I can here to kind of give you a glimpse, a little bit of a taste of what's going on. But it is a really crazy situation. Hearing people in terms of saying hey, I stood in line all day to get gas, and now it's the end of the day, and I can't even do my delivery job, in terms of being a taxi driver or what have you. Stores not being able to run and do their things properly. Hearing about bad economy, I don't know. All these things kind of hit close to home to me. And I do feel like these are stories that are definitely worth telling. I just hate it because I'm just so bad at it and it's so much. But I do know that this isn't so much in this article, but it doesn't seem like Gotabaya is going to be stepping down. And also, it is kind of remains to be seen, too, who does want to take on the mantle of president anyway, because you're going to most likely be hated by the people. There's no quick chain solution for Sri Lanka right now. Kind of reminiscent to what's going on in America, where it's look, we have to face hard times. We have to face harder times to correct this economic problem that we have. And it's kind of like, I don't, from what I've kind of gathered information wise, it doesn't seem like anyone's really rushing to fill that vacuum, but also Gotabaya is not stepping down. He has elected a new prime minister, I believe. I don't have the name of the person, but they're like, nah, we're not cool with this, and you still need to step down. So no one's happy with that decision. So yeah, we'll see. I'm sure this is going to keep popping up. Hopefully we don't see as much violence to the protesters. And I know, like, it's like, well, you shouldn't advocate violence from the protesters. No, you shouldn't. No, I know, like, we already have a problem. Once again, to reference back to America, literally our social justice, our Supreme Court, people, they can't handle little people on their lawn. Like, oh, I'm sorry, Brett Kavanaugh. Oh. Anyway, let me move on. I'm already in the weeds. This is the last bump. I'm gonna take my little smirk break. But I'm going to talk about a man in the Philippines who is set to be wielding a lot of power. And he goes by the name of Bong Marcos Jr. In a perfect world, I'd have a better bong effect there, and it'd be more than a lighter flick. But oh well, we do what we can. But this is a crazy story. I got this also from CNN World. But essentially, there was an election this week. I haven't heard concrete, but I mean, the numbers are so definite that this is like a landslide thing. So it's like pretty much known. Bong Marcos, he's the new guy in charge. Duarte, the current guy, is going to be the guy outbound. But also, he has a daughter who is going to be the vice president to Bong as the president. Sorry, it's so hard not to call him Bong because that name is so good. It's been bouncing around in my brain, and I've been like waiting to say it, like it's salivating. So yeah, we're calling him Bong. His name is Ferdinand Marcos Jr., but he is affectionately known as Bong. But essentially, he won by more than 30 million votes. And his closest rival was the outgoing vice president, Lenny Robredo. Now, me personally, before we getting into the guts of this article and the situation, this is the person I really wish would have won. Listening to some of her policies and her reforms, they sounded great. They sound like someone who had their hand on the situation of what's going on in the Philippines and what people needed. And that's always what you want to hear out of a politician, at least. But she's not the person who won. Bong Marcos is. But here's the rub. He is the son of Marcos. And this is a person who instituted martial law in the Philippines and was more or less just, the way he was controlling people was anyone who was speak out against him, any kind of activist, was more or less just tortured and beaten and killed or disappeared. And that was the end of it. And I believe it was like 20 years. It's just a crazy story. I got to, once again, this is a TrueAnon reference. I got to listen to an interview with one of those activists. It was a guy who was initially who wanted to be a lawyer, but situation changed in the situation, like with just everything happening in the country. He knew he needed to stand up and say something, do something. And mind you, some of the things I'm not getting into. I mean, this is a family. They took billions of dollars away from this country. I believe the number is about 10 billion. Gosh, I'm all over the place here. Yeah, it was for 21 years. So from 1965 to 1986 until he was ousted, and forced to leave to Hawaii. I believe, American, forces picked up the family, and they went to Hawaii, and they were there, I believe, for 6 years. Jeez, Pete's. But yeah, no, this article is pretty thick. But it's definitely just something I wanted to touch on. Also, it's crazy because you're thinking like, well, I mean, a guy so bad who instituted martial law and did all this crazy stuff, like, how did his son wind up in this position where he just more or less just wins by a landslide? And I think it once again kind of cues into how important technology is, how much of a factor it can sway people. Over time, the Marcos family has been putting in work in terms of like having an amazing, impeccable, spotless social image, and literally using that sway, that influence to just tell people anything on the internet. Like the TikTok more or less variant that they have in the Philippines, they've just been running that, telling people anything and everything that they want to hear and making it look so fucking cool, using like American references in songs. Like I heard like the Gangster's Paradise used to like the Marcos walk, like it's a crip walk or something. Like that does something, but that hits different in the Philippines. Like it's so weird, but like it worked. Also just the ties with the Dutertes, who were the current president right now in the Philippines. And mind you, like I said, I mean, this is a democracy we're talking about. This is people where people voted. This is where like the young people really came out. The people who came out to vote, they voted for this man, Mr. Bong Bong. They wanted to take a hit, if you will. But yeah, I mean, also I heard that someone said that they heard the Marcos family was the only way for them to get the money that the Philippines lost back. It's like, but they're the ones who stole from you. Why would they give it back? That's not how that's going to work. It's even gotten to the point where technically Bong Marcos can't even come to America. Like, if anything happens, it's going to have to be the vice president, which is actually going to be the daughter of Rodrigo Duterte, Sarah Duterte Carpio. She's more or less going to have to be the hand that moves this organization, this administration in the Philippines, because he's already technically lost a trial and is already owed, I believe, I don't know. It's a lot of fucking money. Sorry. I got this working on me. I got the Milwaukee's best kicking right now. But yeah, it is a big, weird situation. I was enamored when I started hearing the story unravel before me, as I'm listening to it, as I'm reading about it. Gosh, hopefully as I get a better handle, I will report back to you, or if more news pops up. I mean, we'll see. I'm very curious to see how their administration is going to move. What are they going to do? What are they not going to do? What is the fate of the Philippine people? Or like I said, I mean, people voted for this person. Are they going to be satisfied, happy with their result? Who can say? Who knows? But I will leave you on that note. Thank you for listening. If you made it this far, sorry, I got to go shill mode real quick. I got a Patreon, patreon.com/Isaiah News. Gosh, it's really hitting today, boys. Woo! And gals. At MBs. Oh yeah, also, you know what? Interjection. I'm going to hit you guys. If you stuck it this far, you're getting a bonus music corner. Listened to Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. It was dope. Very interesting. I know people are talking about it on the internet. Kendrick Lamar said words. Yeah. Overall, it's not my favorite, though. I'm going to say not for the controversy or anything like that. I just, I like, To Pimp a Butterfly a lot. And I like Damn a lot. And Good Kid, Mad City was the album that really like put me on to Kendrick, and like I started listening to like some old stuff then after that. This album was good though. You can tell the therapy is a good thing for the soul and the person, and it will do things to the music. At least usually, right? But yeah, no, back to shilling. Patreon.com/Isaiah News. Got it right that time, nailed it. $5 will get you Discord access, which I'm honestly just thinking about making a freed up thing. We'll see. I don't have really anyone donating other than the magnificent Stephanie Renee. I love you. You're the best. Thank you. It's donations like yours that help fuel the podcast. Keep it going. Other than that, I got a Gmail. What is it? Isaiah News 1. You can give me some feedback there if you want. That's a dry freeway. Yuck. Patreon's got a messenger too. But yeah, I will see you for the next episode. I don't know. There's a lot of news. I got to parse through it all, sort it all out. But hopefully I'll see you then, and it'll be some good news. Anyway, love you. Bye. Mwah.